Good afternoon, I'm Dave Malafont, the chairman of the Logistics and Supply Chain Summit for the Americas. And with me today is Mike Busher, who is with the Vanguard Defense Industries. Planes, trains, automobiles, and drones. And we all know about planes, trains, and automobiles. And it's an exciting part to see drones. And I know from a supply chain standpoint, what would you say is going to be maybe the #1 use of drones for supply chain?
Well, it's a great question. What we're seeing right now is a very evolving industry when it comes to the application of this technology towards supply chain, logistics, distribution. We're already starting to see it in places like Amazon. Jeff Bezos and the efforts that they've done there with Amazon Prime, utilizing drones, certainly their intent is to use it. And we do see we are on the cusp of a very thriving aspect of the supply chain part of it. I think it will happen once we start meeting up regulation between the Federal Aviation Administration as well as Department of Transportation. Once they can mesh that with the needs of supply chain, I think it's going to be a booming industry. I really do.
Yeah, we all know that in supply chain, the last mile is always the most critical.
Absolutely.
And some of the challenges we have are in the metropolitan areas. So.
Right.
And I know within the supply chain profession, we talk about will drones ever be accepted in the metropolitan area. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's where the struggle is.
Yeah.
We're trying to meet the needs and understanding the safety requirements. Now, I think we mentioned earlier that our particular system is one of the very few that's approved. It's because we take great measures as far as safety. We have transponders on board so we can communicate with air traffic control. We have navigation lights on board. We take a lot of measures, but a lot of these drones that people see today are almost a hobby level drone. It's something that somebody might go into a hobby store and purchase, and then they think that they can move an object from one location to the other safely, but that's not quite the case. So being able to have that sense and avoid capability, especially in a metropolitan area where you have skyscrapers and things of that nature, that's going to be huge. And so once we can truly integrate that into the commercial airspace, and I think it will happen, that's when we're going to see that boom happen. But metropolitan operations are going to be critical. Mm-hmm. We can do it in an urban setting. We've done it in an urban setting. Companies like Lockheed Martin and their K-MAX, they've been doing it in 4 theaters of operation or for the military. So we're getting there. We're just not quite there yet.
So what do you see as the 5-year vision for drones taking off on this metropolitan, the 5-year vision for it in that use?
Absolutely. Well, I think a 5 to 7 year outlook on it, it's really going to have to take the people in the industry and the supply chain industries to say, look, Federal Aviation Administration, this is a cheaper, more cost-effective way to execute our goals, our needs, meet our customer demands in a faster way. We can save a tremendous amount of time and money in doing it. So we want this industry to open up for us, and we're willing to work with the FAA. Once supply chain leadership starts doing that, that's when we're going to see the changes. And within 5 years, I think it's absolutely practical that we can see large-scale distribution and logistic operations being run with unmanned aerial vehicles.
So how do you believe that the supply chain leadership is embracing it, or do you think there's some more work that needs to be done?
I think there's work to be done, Dave. I do. I think they're getting there, and I think now that some of the information is coming out, that they can save billions of dollars annually. Once they really start understanding, we can see a quick return on investment. That's when they're going to start putting that pressure on the Federal Aviation Administration, and that's when changes are going to happen.
What's the fear of drones?
There's a lot of different fears of drones. Right now, it's educating the population about it, understanding, what they can do, and more importantly, what they can't do. These are not an end-all, be-all solution to it. And taking that and embracing it and really saying, okay, they can only operate 10 miles away from a distribution center or 100 miles away from a distribution center. Once you understand the limitations, then you can start growing that industry. But right now, it's educating people on, again, what they can and cannot do. And people generally have a misperception. They're concerned about the privacy as well as should be. A lot of these drones that are being considered for distribution and supply chain, Amazon Prime, good example, don't have cameras on board. But then you get a safety issue. If they don't have cameras on board, how can they sense and avoid people on the ground, sense and avoid aircraft in the air? So you got safety, you have privacy, a number of hurdles to be handled.
So what can we as supply chain leaders, and here at the summit, There's a lot of senior leaders in the supply chain. How can we help get the message across? Because I believe it's the future.
I agree.
But how can we be more effective to help you get that message across?
Well, there is the industry body that we depend on to have our interaction with the Federal Aviation Administration is an organization called AUVSI. It's the Association Unmanned Vehicle International, and in having them interact with that organization, interact with UAV manufacturers and say, look, we believe in this technology. We think it can be developed, and we know that supply chain can save. And we really see a future there. And starting that dialogue right now, to the best of my knowledge, Dave, that dialogue isn't there.
I'm going to be a little bit provocative here. There's going to be some resistance by the current providers, shipping providers,
Absolutely
to allow drones, because there's the fear it's going to, instead of embracing the new technology, there's a fear it's going to take away from them.
Sure.
Which I think it can complement it, actually, because the last mile, even the last quarter mile, is even tough.
Right.
How do we get beyond that?
Educating those providers, and you hit it right on the head. It's a complement to your current capabilities. We went through the same problem with law enforcement. Law enforcement pushed back so hard and said, look, we already have aviation, we already have an air wing, we have helicopters. We didn't say get rid of your helicopters, we didn't say get rid of your pilots. We said provide UAVs to complement your capabilities. You can put them up quicker, you can deploy them faster, they're far more economical. You don't have to get rid of your current capabilities, complement your capabilities.
So if I hear you correctly, the future of the drones is going to be within the metropolitan areas, and I think I heard you, it's a 10-mile, but a lot of your distribution centers are way outside of the metropolitan areas.
We have, right now, they're unmanned aerial systems that can go out several thousands of miles. We have an aircraft that we utilize that can be up for 24 hours. So you simply plug in a GPS coordinate in that aircraft. It'll travel from your launch point to your endpoint, deliver its systems, and then return back. You can go several thousands of miles. The problem is that 10-mile radius is what companies like Amazon Prime are looking at, when they're looking at battery operated. The future is not battery operated. You know, again, it's combustion engines, it's piston engines, things of that nature that are going to be more costly. They are going to require maintenance. They are going to be. It's not going to be a simple overnight solution, but it can be done. It absolutely can.
So when you talk about not only the actual airplane or drone, but do you also develop the technology behind it and the aerodynamics for
we
it?
do.
And
absolutely right.
Aeronautics.
You're spot on. We have we hold a number of patents in the airframe, the camera stabilization system, things of that nature. Patents on the code for the algorithms we utilize for the autopilot. So that's key. It's not just putting up your RC airplane. We try to make a better mousetrap, and I think we've done that.
So how do we get beyond the privacy issue?
You know, it's helping people to understand that those cameras, in the case of supply chain, those cameras are for navigational purposes. That, you know, maybe you have something written in the code where the cameras only come on at launch and recovery. So when you're coming into your landing zone to deliver your products, or right at the point of launch, you don't need it for a navigation point. So you're not infringing on an individual's privacy. We're as concerned about people's privacy as anybody else, perhaps more so. So we're willing to, when we've worked with a number of organizations, everything from the FAA to the ACLU, to try to focus on privacy and address them appropriately.
And then dealing with the regulatory to make sure that the privacy is...
It is a dynamic time, Dave.
Yeah, we have planes, trains, ships, automobiles. That's what in trucks that we talk about in supply chain. Now we have a new one. It's called drones. Michael Busher joining us from Vanguard. Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.